Jai Hind everyone. Today we are going to tell you about the story of the biggest operation which took place after Kargil war, in which at least 25 terrorists were eliminated. But officially, only 16 bodies could be recovered. This operation took place in the year 2005 when an entire Indian Army brigade was involved in neutralizing a large group of terrorists. It's an operation which lasted over 72 hours in the most rugged terrain, including dangerous cliffs, rock faces, high-speed streams and thick forest. Apart from the guts and glory of the Indian soldiers, the operation saw many civilians who were involved in the success of the operation, including a Bakarwal and a young girl who risked her life because an officer involved in the operation had helped finance her education when her family could not afford to do it.
The beauty of the operation has not been, we keep a lot of operations. Here, there was not a single own or collateral casualty. Collateral means not even a civilian, a bullet didn't even graze. It was absolutely clean, what they call surgical. It was to that extent very, very surgical, and the only bodies that shown all belong to militants. There was not even anybody accused. Somebody could say, okay, there was an attempt or any HR violation or something. Nothing. It was absolutely clean. We just picked them up like, like flowers, we picked them up. Just one by one. It was over 3 days. We could have tried to do it in 1 day, but then it would have bought us more casualties. So we took our time. We had got them boxed in. A lot of good work by the boys.
Despite the bravery displayed by our soldiers and civilians, the operation ended up with a fake case against the officers involved, and a few dark secrets of some section of media also came to the fore after the operation got over. This is a true story which will well up any Indian's eye. Name of the people involved in the story may have slightly been altered to avoid giving their exact identities. The operation had got a lot of media attention when it happened, and so did the people involved. But we are being a little cautious.
We had done in about 2005, and the unit had just spent a couple of months, a few months. We had just moved from Meerut, and this opportunity came along, this large group. They just decided to infiltrate. We got hold of them, and it was a very difficult terrain. You can imagine. Just to give you a background, if you see the photographs, the area is right adjoining, the famous Dras Kargil area. It is the northernmost boundary, and the Kabul Gully is the pass separating Dras from this area. So it is very similar topography. The heights are that much, 14,000, 15,000 feet, and these guys did manage to come over from that side. They just got hold of some Bakarwals, and they were planning to walk another 3 days and reach, in the hinterlands. Just to the bad luck, we got on the tail. 3 days of hard work, we got them.
On July 14, 2005, the Shina-speaking Gurezis, ethnically linked to the Gilgit in Pakistan's northern areas, saw the sky lit up due to the artillery guns going boom boom. This was no cross LOC firing. It signaled the last phase of Indian Army's operation against Jaish-e-Mohammed cadres infiltrating this sector. The operation was primarily undertaken by the Ghatak platoon of 20 Punjab, commanded by 10 Ghatak platoon commander Lieutenant Pandey, under the command of then commanding officer Colonel JAMWAL. The word Ghatak in Hindi means dangerous or the destroyer. They are aptly named. This was called Operation Makalwain, which is now taught to the young leaders at infantry school as a model operation. It was perhaps one of the biggest operations since Kargil war. The fence in the Gurez sector lies 10 to 15 kilometers from the line of control, along the Kishanganga river that is fed by the mountain streams like Makalwain. As some of these streams originate from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, they are natural ingress routes for the terrorists to infiltrate across the line of control. In Gurez sector, Barab, Chakwali, Kaubal Gali, Gujran, Satinar, Buzinal and Naushiranar are known infiltration routes that go through high mountain passes between 12,000 to 18,000 feet. This was the area where the Indian Army had gunned down 18 terrorists in September 2003. So this is how the story begins. A Bakarwal was forced by terrorists to help them infiltrate into India. The Bakarwal had later informed Indian Army about the movements of the terrorist. Unknown to the terrorist who had picked him up to forcefully assist them, this man and his brother had earlier been involved in chopping a terrorist who had raped the Bakarwal's wife. But that day, the large group of Pakistani armed trained terrorists needed an equally big column of defense forces to eliminate them. So the Bakarwal decided to inform the Indian Army. The Bakarwal tribe are usually shepherds who have assisted Indian Army in different operations. So let us just give you an introduction to the major players of this operation. Colonel JAMWAL, an officer who had an extensive operational profile. His tenure with the 51 SAG, that is the Special Action Group, had given him a deep insight in the Special Forces operation experience at the highest level. He had vast counterinsurgency experiences on all the theatres to include Jammu and Kashmir and the northeastern states of India. He had a reputation of never losing a soldier in direct contact. He was to go on leave, but as luck would have it, his family was glued for 72 hours to the television after his name began flashing on the TV screen when the operation started. Lieutenant Pandey, a commissioned young officer with only 1 year of service, an enthusiastic young officer who was having a tough time convincing his girlfriend's parents for their marriage. Major Kesar, a second-generation officer who, like his father, a Subedar Major, had joined 20 Punjab. Colonel JAMWAL and his father had served together in a unit earlier. Major Vishal, a flamboyant officer from the Armored Corps who was on a crass attachment training with the unit, and then there was Subedar Sukhwinder, a rustic Sikh with a special sense of humor. He was also known for his unbelievable stamina, who could run for hours bearing unimaginable loads. He complimented Lieutenant Pandey's physical fitness, and his vast operational experience was just a boon. On July 10th, the Bakarwal informed the Barod-based 20 Punjab about a large group of infiltrators who had crossed the line of control and were now headed towards the Makkalvain Nala. Commanding officer of 20 Punjab, Colonel JAMWAL, gave the task of tracking the terrorists to his commando platoon led by Lieutenant Pandey, while Major Kesar and Major Vishal were told to station themselves across Makkalvain at Domel Forest atop a sheer mountain at Puri. At 2:30 p.m. on July the 10th, Lieutenant Pandey spotted the terrorists and started trailing them. They were beyond his weapons range. At 10 p.m. that night, Major Kesar tried to cross the turbulent Makkalvain Nala, but the scouts were swept away by the strong current and had to be rescued with the help of ropes. Meanwhile, the operation had made it to the headlines on television, and the names of the officers involved also flashed in the reports, putting their families on tenterhooks. What shocked those involved in the operation was Indian media knew more about the terrorists than them. This had to be investigated after the operation got over. That night, a young teenage girl tried to contact the soldiers with a small piece of paper. The Urdu written in it could not be read by Lieutenant Pandey, so he got it read by others. It is then that the team came to know about the further movement of the terrorists. The girl knew in which direction the terrorists were headed. She had risked her life and that of her families to approach the Indian Army.
Of human interest, there are the locals, how did they help? I mean, there are people whom you knew for years together, and suddenly you have forgotten about them. They came up. I mean, I told you about the story of that little girl whom I had helped long time back. I mean, when she was just in 5th or 6th. Now she was a grown-up girl, and suddenly that day she came in so handy. She gave us the precise information. Okay, here they are. I mean, we knew by that time these guys are generally floating around in the area, and she helped us neutralize at least 3 of them clearly. She told these 3 will come here at this spot to collect food in the morning. And we told her, don't worry, nothing is going to happen to you, go and sleep. We will deliver food to them. And the food they had prepared, we took it, them, placed them there. They came to collect, we got all 3 of them.
A few years ago, Colonel JAMWAL, who was then a major, had helped save the girl from being thrown out of her school and helped finance her education. Next day, at 4:30 a.m., Major Kesar spotted the terrorist at Domel Forest. As per the girl's information, at 1:30 p.m., the Ghatak commander, Lieutenant Pandey, fired at the group and saw a number of them drop dead. Later at 6 p.m., helicopters ferried the troops in the area. 11 Sikh, Dogra scouts and 3rd Rajput joined the battle. Brigadier Rajavelu and Colonel JAMWAL also moved in. Between midnight and 7 a.m. on July the 12th, the troops eliminated the 3 terrorists but could only recover 2 bodies, and this didn't come easy. That day, Subedar Sukhwinder was responsible for saving the lives of his brethren in a particular situation when they got pinned out by the terrorist fire. Since the situation, he was ordered to organize a diversion so that the other soldiers could be extricated. He did it in the bravest way possible. Without wasting any time in planning and seeing the terrorists' effective fire, he diverted their fire onto himself. Being confident of his agility, he ran and abused them in the choicest of Punjabi abuses to infuriate them. This worked. The terrorists were distracted and attempted to engage him while his fellow soldiers moved to a better position and took aim at the terrorist.
Process of extrication, Sukhwinder played a big role. It is something like he tried to, one more boy, diverted their fire so that another party of mine could come and cover with their withdrawal. So he played a very heroic kind of a role where he ran with one more boy and these guys started firing at them, and in the process the rest of my Ghatak could fall back to a slightly safer location from where they could go up to a much greater height and then of course get in contact again.
A terrorist radio intercept from across the line of control later revealed that 12 of their fellow terrorists had attained Shahadat. By this time, Major Kesar had managed to cross the Makalvain through a makeshift bridge, and they had created using all the local resources available at their disposal at that point of time. Now it is called the Kesar Bridge. All three platoons closed in at point 3395, where the rest of the terrorists were holed up. On July the 13th afternoon, Pandey's platoon came under fire from a hold of terrorists who refused to surrender. The Ghatak commander had been instructed to capture him alive. After engaging him for more than 24 hours, the officer was given the instruction, "Kheech de." An automatic grenade launcher from Major Vishal is all that it took to silence the terrorist. The rest of the terrorists tried to go back towards the line of control on July 13th and 14th. The army then used the artillery with illumination rounds, and more troops moved in to the theatre to push them back. On July 14th and 15th, the Indian Army recovered 9 bodies from the Makalvain, but the radio intercept from across spoke of 16 halak ho gaye hain, meaning 16 terrorists had been eliminated. From July 16th to 21, the troops found 6 more bodies, taking the toll to 22. Many of the terrorists had jumped into the river and their bodies had floated back to Pakistan, making it difficult to ascertain the exact number of terrorists eliminated. One of the mysteries that remained unsolved for a few more days was how did the journalists get information before the Indian Army? Later it came to light that one of the journalists was in contact with a terrorist. What is more shocking was Hurriyat claiming an officer involved in the case had raped a woman. This was of course a false claim to denigrate the Indian Army.
The final briefing by I remember still General JJ was the chief. He had come he had said, "It is a trend, mark my words. He says they will get after this boy." That is referring to me. He says this kind of operation, invariably, they personally get after officers. They personally get after officers. They told the GOC, they told my co-commander, he says, "You have to look out, this will happen. And it will happen before he leaves this valley. It will happen, it has happened before. And a number of times." So to that extent, it was a little anticipated. And it is very routine, movement, and it has happened with quite a few people. But it is something like a standard operating procedure with the ISI. The moment somebody succeeds like that, they have to get back, and the only way they can get back is that take HR cases and all.
In Op Makalvain, at least 25 of the terrorists who had been 72'd easily, and therefore pro-Pak section within India was earthed. The Ghatak commander Lieutenant Pandey and Subedar Sukhwinder were awarded Shaurya Chakra, and others were given commendation cards. Also, after the operation, his girlfriend's parents agreed for their marriage. All that starts well, ends well. Hope you have enjoyed this video. Do not forget to watch more such videos from our playlist, and do share our content with others. Like, share and subscribe. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.